Hi everyone, it's Dan, and welcome to the fourth and final video in this series of repairing crash damage on this BMW G310R. Now, a while back I dropped this bike. It scratched up the bar ends, the brake lever, and the crash bars. I also noticed that there are some scratches on the exhaust heat shield, so in this video we're going to fix those. So this job's about a 2 out of 5 in terms of difficulty. It'll take you an hour, maybe 2 from start to finish. Really because it requires quite a bit of patience and then also probably some trial and error so that you can match the finish of the surface that you're repairing with the rest of the piece. You'll need a power drill. I ended up using a rust removal attachment. This guy worked really well for removing some of the deeper scratches, and then varying grits of sandpaper. I started with a 60, then an 80, 220, 320, and then finally finished it off with an 800. So the way that I'll do this is I'm going to use this rust removal attachment for an electric drill to very gradually shave off very thin layers of metal until all the deep scratches are gone. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'll switch over to sandpaper. I'll probably start with something like a 60 or an 80 grit to begin with, and then remove all the scratches as much as I can, and then gradually work towards a finer and finer grit so that the surface of the worked area matches the original as much as I can. And then finally, on the last step, I'm going to use a buffing wheel along with some buffing compound to try and match the finish so that we can hardly tell that any repairs have been done. So I'm going to go ahead and install the attachment onto my drill, and then we'll get started. All right, so it took a little while, but using this rust removing attachment to a drill really did a nice job of allowing me to get to all the deeper scratches. So the next step here is going to be to scuff it up and polish it to match the original finish as much as we can. So one of the keys to sanding metal is really to take your time with it. I chose not to use an electric sander just to give me a little bit more control over how I'm doing this. I also don't want to create any flat spots because the whole surface is curved. So it's better to take your time, go nice and slow, and then work your way towards finer and finer grit. So as you get closer and closer to the final finish, pay attention to the grooves, so the little lines that are in the original parts of the finish, and try to align your sandpaper strokes with those lines to try and create as seamless of a finish as you can. Right now I think I'm pretty good as far as this grit of sandpaper, so I've been using 220. I'll go down to the next finer one and then see how much farther I need to go to try and match this guy up. So the next one that I have is a 320. Okay, so this is probably about as good as I'm going to be able to get. There are still very, very slight scratches, so they're about the same depth as the original one. The last thing that I want to do before I decide whether I want to polish this thing or not is I'll give it a very quick, gentle go-over over the rest of the surface. The idea here is to make everything look as similar to each other as we can. That looks pretty good. It's been blended in pretty well. And then for the last step, I'm going to use one of the polishing wheels to do a very, very gentle polish with probably one of the coarser polishing or buffing compounds and blend everything together. So the way we'll do this is to apply the buffing compound onto the polishing wheel. We do that by just pressing it while it's rotating in a drill. This is a very kind of a waxy, hard surface. So as you press on it, it's going to create some friction, heat it up, and then get rubbed into the polishing wheel. And then I'll do the same thing and then make the spinning direction of the polishing wheel the same as the grooves on the actual heat shield. And the idea here is not to press hard, do it just enough to create friction, let the polishing compound do the work, and we're just going to do a very quick go over. Really, the goal here is to try and blend this entire area so that it doesn't look just like one patch that got worked on. All right, so this is looking pretty good. Last step here is going to be to reinstall this screw. So let's finish this up. So always start things by hand, just to make sure all the threads line up. And then we'll tighten it up. Okay, so I'm really happy how this guy turned out. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.